I'm Luke, and nearly 6 years ago I was involved in a tragic accident in a scrap metal yard, and this is my story. We were doing a job up the north of the country. It was involving scrapping metal. I was working close in hand with the operator of the crane unloading the lorry, and basically a girder slipped, and I happened to be in the vicinity of it, and it landed on my foot. I think on my first evening they basically operated and put some metal work in my foot and a suction pack, and then the following day I was then approached by a surgeon, and he told me it was going to be quite an extensive surgery. They took the two smallest toes off my right foot. I ended up with skin grafts and a muscle flap off my right leg. I knew, this is looking like life-changing now already within 48 hours, By the time I saw the surgeon the following morning in what was to become my new room for 3 weeks, he was adamant I had to get amputated. He said the thing that was on the end of my leg was no longer a foot, which was quite hard to swallow because I thought, all this time and all the surgeries, I was going to keep my leg. My auntie approached Leigh, and they were just very calming with the procedure and the fact there was definitely a case to answer, and it is life-changing, and I was going to need proper support and help. Leigh were very quick off the mark with sorting out the liability side of the case management, the initial help that I would need in raising funds, sorting out the disability benefit that I was entitled to, and basically ironing out all the creases to get me the proper help that I was going to need in the way of physio, a leg, and support. I was beaten at that point anyway with what had happened to me, but because they took that time and effort into make me feel like this is about me and not just about what they do, I was able to sort of rethink it and get on with, what they wanted me to do. You're talking intense physio. They call it rehabilitation, which I suppose it is, but it does bring tears to your eyes at certain points. But the knowledge I have now through going through that is the fact that I get up in the morning and I put my leg on, and I'm up and going, and I'll wear that leg for 14 hours of the day when I can. I don't want to take it off. It's my best friend. But in order for me to wear that leg, I still have to keep on top of my game in the way I swim most days, and I try and keep myself physically fit, doing anything from 13 to 20,000 steps a day, according to my line Fitbit. The people that Leigh did source seemed to be the top of their field, which sort of allowed me that comfort zone to know I was being looked after properly. I was really struggling with finding, an activity or a hobby or something to do with the remainder of my day, and that I was going to be safe doing as well. I mean, everything I did, I had to choose to do. I always checked with Leigh to make sure it'd be safe and correct for me to do it without further injuring myself or putting myself at risk, because I've always been a little bit, bull in a china shop-ish really, and wanting to get out and do things, but sometimes it's not always the best way, especially when you're a learning amputee. I bought a classic car. I had the pedals converted for myself and started to go into shows, and then things started to fall into place with, I could really see myself not only just polishing these things, but maintaining them, going back to my youth as being a banger driver. It's all nuts and bolts. These things aren't regulated by computers like the cars of today. These things are all spanners and hammers, which I like. It means I'm hands-on, and I come out here with pardon the pun, skipping me step about what I'm going to achieve today, but I always achieve something. I found that Leigh were supportive, professional, and got me all the support I needed.